Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry for all the delay, but we're having some internet issues here, but I think we've got it where we can get started this morning. I want to welcome everyone. Hope you've had a good start to the new year, and it's good to see everyone's face this morning. We've got a good agenda, so we'll go ahead and get started. Our first item of business is our minutes. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the minutes? Okay, if not, I need a motion to approve.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the minutes as written.
Arlinda Sanders, I second.
Okay, I think Ms. Flowers made the motion to approve and Ms. Sanders seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion approved. Our first item of business is the Perkins 5. Dr. McDonald.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm glad we got some internet issues figured out. I'm thrilled to be here again. Thank you so much for inviting me. Can everyone hear me?
Go ahead, Dr. McDonald.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. All right, so I was asked to give an update today on the consolidated annual report, which is a yearly report that DCTE submits. And we're required to have narrative performance reports as a piece of that, as well as financial reports. And this year we did have an extension for the final financial report, and that's due in part to COVID. And as a transition year from Perkins 4 to Perkins 5, the performance data reports were not required. And the performance data, I'll talk a little bit more in a minute, relates to academic performance because a lot of the definitions change within Perkins 5 from Perkins 4. One of the things that they have done is create this single consolidated annual report. So rather than submit 3 separate reports, we have one portal that we go into and submit a complete report describing what we've done. And the report's due every year by December 31st. So this being my first year working through this, it was an interesting week before the holidays, and we were able to submit prior to that deadline. Some of the things that we'd like to let you know that we've been able to improve through Perkins and some of the highlights of our narrative report include some technology and data improvements, which I think just seeing what's happening throughout the state, there's been lots of those improvements. So we are creating a CTE portal, and the funds were able to help support funding phase 1 of developing this. And the portal is going to align with data from the ADE Data Center and LEA Insights dashboard. Eligible recipients, the CTE coordinators that are in the field, and state staff will all be able to access this portal. So we're really excited to get that off the ground. Another piece that will help us moving forward is a data sharing agreement that we have with DIS, and Denise Irola, up in OIE helped with this, as well as Dr. Kramer's, in ensuring that this data sharing agreement happened. What this is going to do is allow us to access employment data, wage data, military service information for our placement reporting. And when we look at placement reporting in Perkins 5, we're looking at concentrators who finished their Perkins program, their program of study, and where they are 2 semesters post-graduation. Previously, what's happened is the CTE coordinators out in the field have gotten great big spreadsheets from us, from DCTE.
It's my picture and it says Jenny Stroud.
Trying to follow up on where are all those students. This is going to allow DIS to gather the majority of that data in coming years, and then our coordinators in the field will just have to find those handful of students that aren't there. So this is really huge in terms of data accuracy and allowing our coordinators to focus on other things in terms of serving our students. The other data piece that this has allowed us to do, pardon me, is the development of seamless work-based learning portal, and that's going to be piloted this year. Work-based learning, as you know, is becoming increasingly important throughout the state for our students to come with the skills, not just the technical skills that they need, but those soft skills that they learn in a work environment, how to be a good employee and those kinds of things. As I said, the narrative reports will change in the coming year. We will be asked to provide the academic performance data. And again, it's not that we aren't tracking that, but the definitions for Perkins 5 have changed from previous. So we'll be tracking reading and language arts, mathematics, and science. Those are the pieces that we're required to report. One of the other changes in Perkins 5 is we're now focusing more on supporting non-traditional fields in current and emerging professions. And the definition of that non-traditional is occupation or fields of work for which individuals from one gender comprise less than 25% of individuals employed in that occupation or field of work. So really looking at how are we helping students that may not have pursued a certain career track? How are we recruiting them and helping them do that? The other thing is special populations programming has gotten enhanced priority through Perkins 5. And those special populations are defined as individuals with disabilities, individuals from economically disadvantaged families, including low-income youth and adults, individuals preparing for those non-traditional fields, single parents, including single pregnant women, out of workforce individuals, and English learners. So they have added new categories under Perkins 5, and we're really working to determine how we can help those special populations moving forward. The career development courses have also become a highlight. Again, working to ensure that our students understand what's out there as careers. A lot of our students may not have had access to even know some of the things that are available to them if they live in a small town and have never seen certain professions. So the career development courses now are offered to all students, including those from special populations, by the end of grade 8. Exposure to career options, as well as skills, aptitudes, and employer expectations of future careers of choice. So again, students are getting that knowledge. We have an Arkansas Career Coach program, as you can see on the slide, that those are housed in a total of 60 of our school districts, providing services to over 33,000 students, grades 7 through 12. And we have 59.5 positions. Another program that we have within Arkansas is JAG, Jobs for Arkansas Graduates. And this is really targeted prevention program looking to help at-risk students succeed in terms of graduation, job attainment, and enrollment in a higher level of education. Our JAG program has won the 5 of 5 award for the 14th year in a row. So our JAG program we're rocking it, to be honest. It reflects the success of 2019 high school graduates who had significant barriers to that graduation. We do have 116 JAG specialists serving 125 school districts to nearly 4,000 students in those grades 6 through 12. pardon me, some of the programs that we have currently that we highlighted in our CAR narrative to target those non-traditional fields. Southern Arkansas University started a Girls in Ag Day day camp with local schools in that area. And within that program, there were female leaders within the agriculture career, and they were on site for those girls to be able to interact with. They got hands-on experience in lots of different areas of ag. We have school-based enterprises throughout the state, which allows students to experience all aspects of marketing and managing a small business. Those are really interesting to me, seeing how our students are really digging into entrepreneurship and understanding all the areas of business management. The Arkansas STEM Coalition does a Girl Power in STEM event with several universities offering similar events across the state. DCTE is collaborating with the Computer Science Office to offer CTE computer science programs of study and participating in the Technology Student Association. And then we've got some higher ed things going on as well. Our post-secondary schools offer 23 programs that are encouraging non-traditional enrollment. And some of those programs are nursing, Cisco Network Associate, arc welding, and criminal justice. We also use part of the funds to reach out to folks that are being served in our state correctional institutions. And this past year, we had the opportunity to fund the Serve Safe Manager certification program that impacted 400 incarcerated individuals across the state at all these residential treatment centers. So again, we are trying to have as big of an impact in anyone in removing barriers for their success, including talking again about serving individuals with disabilities. There were 5 projects that were funded at the Arkansas School for the Deaf in 2019-2020. We enhanced the agricultural education program, allowing those teachers to get some additional training, purchasing rabbit equipment so students could learn about caring for small animals, a driver education course. There were computers purchased to help students learn graphic design skills. And then there was also a large interactive touch TV provided for the business finance class. Another area that we provide support for is professional development for our career and education teachers. Each program area that we provide has new teacher professional development. So if you are just beginning to teach in CTE, there is support for you, not just generally, but within the program area that you're teaching. We have an annual Arkansas Department of Education Summit, the CTE Playbook, and blended learning courses to help our teachers understand how to teach virtually, a Facebook Live series for each occupational area, and then micro-credentialing for those CTE teachers. So I wanted to talk a little bit, pardon me, about how what the process is for approving and funding new programs. And this is fairly unique to Arkansas, and we have received some kudos from the federal folks on how we are deciding which programs to fund. We begin with state startup grants that are funded with state dollars, and LEAs and co-ops send their applications for new programs that are submitted through this process. There is a scoring rubric that's used, and the coordinators at the state level are scoring those for each occupational area. And then as a group, the DCTE team reviews those, prioritize them, and making sure that we have a variety of programs that are offered across the state. We want to ensure that there aren't just pockets of lots of programs being offered and then areas of the state that are not included. So we talked a little bit earlier about the college and career coach program and how many students are served through that. Some of the results from that this past year were that 76% of participating freshmen and sophomores participated in one of those work-based learning experiences. That's a huge percentage, especially when you consider the impact of COVID. So our college and career coach folks were really getting our students connected to the workforce and the businesses, and that really shows that connection between what we're doing in CTE and what local areas are doing to connect with our students. 89% of juniors received college planning services through these programs, and 92% of seniors received assistance with applying for financial aid. And that is the end of my presentation. Do we have questions?
Okay, Dr. McDonald,
Yes, hi, Charlinda.
how are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good. It was nice to visit with you yesterday in our meeting as well. I really, for this group, want to give a shout out to Dr. McDonald and her team for this data sharing agreement. The chair that I sit in with my district, I might be looking at 500 to 600 program completers annually. I'm so sorry. How rude of me. I didn't realize my camera wasn't on. I might have 500 or 600 completers annually, and I have actually resorted to looking them up on Facebook to find out what their placement is 2 semesters after graduation. So that agreement's a game changer for our CTE directors and coordinators around the state. So, you know, snaps to you all for that. It's wonderful news. My only question is, you talked about non-traditional career fields. And in the past, we have actually had a list. Do we have a list? Where might we access that to look at what those non-traditional career fields are that we might want to focus on?
Thank you. That's such a great question. Let me address the first thing first. And I want to say, as I did in the meeting yesterday, the kudos for that data sharing agreement truly goes to Dr. Kramers and Dr. Arola. They were the driving force that was in the works before I even got here. So I can't take the credit, but I'm thrilled to be able to offer that for our CTE coordinators. In terms of the non-traditional programs, yes, that they are up on our website. I'll find that link and share that. I'll try to get that while we're in the meeting and put that in the chat. So yes, they are up and they have been updated. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Are there any other questions for Dr. McDonald?
I do. I have a question, and I'm sorry I'm not sharing my video. I have very poor signal, and I think if I do, I'll probably lose you all. On the startup applications, the startup grants that people have applied for, what percentage of applications are approved each year? Just a general idea of what percentage you think are approved.
Dr. Kramers, are you on the call? Like I said, this is my first year, so I'm not sure I can answer that.
Yes, let me pull up the report. Dr. Jeffcoat, it varies each year depending on the expense of the program that's approved. So we have some programs that cost around 25, 30,000 and some that are over 100,000. So the percent approved, we have 2.37 million flat, and it's been flat for decades. So, you know, it just kind of, again, depends on which ones are approved and how much those are. Of course, the more expensive the program, the less applicants that are funded. So what I'll do is I'll look at that and I'll put it in the chat box in response what the percent was this year. And that could be just a helpful quick stat. And then feel free to email me and follow up, or I can email you and follow up if you have additional questions, but I'll put that stat once I go pull that. We did a quick summary of kind of the quick stats and breakdown by, you know, co-op and different ways we look at it, because we want to keep continuing to ensure that it's a very equitable process. And so, you know, we look at it from geographic, you know, all different ways to examine. So I'll be happy to do that and give you the percent, and I'll follow up and put it in the chat to everybody in just a few moments while I find that.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to say thank you so much for the report this morning. You did an excellent job. We have an outstanding CTE program across the state, and we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be part of this. Every day I'm amazed at what's happening throughout the state, and the cooperation and collaboration, like I said, both with the CTE coordinators, our local business people. It's really exciting.
This is Melinda Kennison, and I have a question about the career development program. I hear lots of talk about partnering with the businesses to find out what they're needing and that sort of thing. But I'm wondering if there's any program in which we are partnering with secondary education to find out what the term that I've heard is discovery degrees, which are careers and pathways that most people don't know. And the experience that I've had with this is with my daughter. She's in a career path that benefits mental health. But because most people don't know about this degree, there's not a critical number of those people working in the state to have a good program set up in different places. So is there any kind of, is there any kind of program that you're looking at those sorts of careers?
So absolutely, that is part of, not just the non-traditional careers, which is, gender-based, but we do look at what are the needs in the state, in the local community. Each district does a local area needs assessment, and part of that is collaborating with the business people. We do have a relationship with the Division of Higher Education and have those conversations as well. And it's an ongoing, where do we need to shift our focus? And that's the beauty of having those startup program applications. So if an area is saying, you know what, we need more focus in this area, they can determine what they need and talk about the programs of study and how do they connect to secondary ed, post-second, the whole, the pipeline, if you will. Does that answer your question? I see Dr. Kramer's has popped on too, so she's going to have some additional.
Lydia, you did fabulous. That's awesome. And the only thing I would add to that is we follow the national career clusters. So the clusters are defined nationally. So anything mental health or careers surrounding that would fall kind of in our health sciences cluster. And so what we do is we base on the trends that are through the Department of Labor and the Occupational Handbook. And so labor market data is really important to us. So we go out, we do analysis with what the labor market information is saying. We look out 5 years, 10 years, kind of what are the trending occupations. And so, if it's not one of those high wage, high skill, in demand careers, then it would fall into our career exploration. And so if it's not like in a set program of study based on those requirements by Octay at the federal level, then we make sure that that's through career exploration at some of the lower levels as well. So we have the state career exploration inventory that students are able to do as a part of their student success plan. And then we also instituted with CARES Act money this year, which was fabulous, NEPRIS. And NEPRIS allows you to explore all kinds of different occupations. And so there are quite a few mental health highlighted. And then also ICEV does career exploration. And we're looking at an additional one. I think CARES Act funding has a 3-year contract with one called WorkBay. And so all of these sites have kind of a little bit more than the career inventory based on, I'm just checking these boxes because I'm kind of interested in these things. So they kind of like the interest, but like you said, if the student's not aware, it may or may not connect them to what those potential careers are. So that's what's really cool about these other new, and it's kind of a trending thing that's on more of emerging, is where it actually highlights all of these very different careers that people do not know about. And they can click and then they can hear from a current business professional in the field. It'll highlight how much they earn. And so, if there's a specific one, we can absolutely go and try to examine, like, would that be highlighted? But really those discovery degrees is kind of part of that new emerging thing that students have access to. So a lot of different ways, but it's going through career exploration and understanding. It's hard, for students to kind of navigate through, but there's a lot of support for that. So fabulous question, Lydia, Dr. McDonald, you did a great job, and great question.
Are there any other questions from the group?
Ms. Newton, if I may just add that we always ask our colleagues in DCTE to join us at the ESSA Steering Committee. And just as a reminder to everyone that many of the metrics that we're using in our ESSA index are then turned around and used related to CTE students for their accountability for Perkins 5. So our work is very related. Also, if you recall, when we did our initial stakeholder meetings to design our ESSA school index methodology, one of the things that our stakeholders wanted to include is CTE. And so we are studying this data, and they have preliminary data, but they're also looking to use these assessments going forward to have data to make wise decisions regarding Perkins 5. We will be watching that data and coming back and reporting to this committee what we're learning from that. You know, we talked about earlier, we considered when is the right time for an amendment to include CTE data. And the recommendation from our TAC was, let's study it and see what the impact of it is and what the impact of it would be on the index. And so let's put it in the right place at the right time. So we've not ever let any of that go, but due to COVID, it's probably delayed it a little longer, but we are working very closely to see if or when it needs to be included into the ESSA index.
In the report with the data sharing and the data improvements that Dr. McDonald discussed. So that is a exciting thing for the future. I think that it's going to really impact students. So I was very impressed with that. I did have one question on the career coach. Why do you think there are only 60 school districts that are utilizing the career coach?
All right, Dr. Kramer, I'm gonna pitch this one back to you.
Thank you for that question. It is a matter of funding. We want to expand, and it actually is going before the legislature, this legislative session, to expand the career coach program. So we're in about half the counties across the state. And even if we're in that county, we may only be in one district within that county. So there's so many students underserved. We really need to expand that program. And so the legislative bill, I think it's Senate Bill 61, I want to say, and that'll really be critical for us because that's really our safety net on how we help support all students. And it helps with, you know, transition to college. It helps with career planning, and really just taking that one-on-one time where that career coach can have that one-on-one time that can make a critical difference for that student. So we're crossing our fingers. We are really hopeful for a successful session for that to be approved to expand. So really it's the limitation is the staffing and funding to support the expansion.
I was afraid that was going to be the answer, but I have seen the career coach in action and know what a vital role that a coach can have on a student as far as selecting their future pathway. And so it's an excellent program. And so I hope this will go through and more districts will be able to get involved with that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. McDonald? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move on to the ESSA advisory reports. The first one is Dr. Saraceni.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. While we were transitioning back online, I went ahead and got on my iPad, so I'm doing double. So the slides, can you see the slides?
You need to share your screen, Dan said.
Okay, I can't share my screen on this iPad, but it's not a lot of information.
Would you like us to come
but I
back
will
to
go
you?
Over the information.
Would you like us to come back to you?
Yes, that would be.
We can move on and then come back to you after accountability, if that's okay.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So we'll move on to assessment, Rachel Horn.
Good morning. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Happy to be here this morning. I appreciate everyone being here. I have a few updates for assessment. Our efforts since our last ESSA steering committee meeting has really been around communication about assessment in the spring. Our required annual training for district test coordinators will be next week, and so we will see a lot of communication about the spring assessment windows come out at that time. We have transitioned those to virtual to meet the needs according to the impact that COVID has right now. So we will have those on January 19th, 20th, and 21st of next week. And so that's when we'll see a lot of the updates that we have for assessment communicated to district test coordinators. That is required for all DTCs. And so we want to make sure that all districts are well informed, not only about the assessment window, but also how districts can address some of the issues that were raised in the last ESSA steering committee meeting. Some of the information that will be provided to those district test coordinators during those training dates. Of course, we know that testing will be on site for spring this year. We want to make sure, just as districts have done all year in the teaching and learning cycle for students, want to make sure that they are careful to follow all CDC and ADH guidelines. And of course, that will include masks, adequate spacing, etc. One of the things that we have really been talking about is how we as an agency can support districts as they meet those recommended guidelines. And so we will be communicating with district test coordinators some of the things that they can do in terms of creative scheduling or flexibilities that can be offered to them. As we expected, we've already had multiple districts reach out, thinking creatively about how they can ensure that their students are safe and communicating that with families. And so we are eager to work with districts as they develop those plans based on their local community need. We have been working with the Family and Community Engagement team to develop a toolkit that is specific to communicating about assessment for the spring. We understand that families may be anxious given the current COVID context, and so we really want to make sure that families understand why it is so important that we do assess, why it's important that we're assessing on site, and how we can make those families feel comfortable in sending their students to school to test. Of course, the toolkit is just a template for districts to use. So we really would encourage districts to communicate clearly about all of the precautions and safety measures that they're putting in place on site on test day to keep those students safe. So we really feel strongly that communication will be a powerful tool to help us assess student learning, to measure that learning so that we can best meet student needs. We are actually engaging in a multifaceted approach in terms with this toolkit. So not only is the assessment team presenting to district test coordinators, this toolkit will also be shared with parent and family coordinators at each district. I think some of our other units are communicating with their stakeholder groups as well, just to be sure that we are sharing a strong, consistent message that safety is our priority. It is important that we measure student learning, but we'll do everything that we can to keep our students safe. That toolkit will also include a flyer and FAQ. Again, the goal is to help communicate and to help parents understand not only why it's important to measure student learning, but how districts will be keeping students safe during that testing window or those testing windows. We will continue communication out of the Student Assessment Office. We have a biweekly newsletter. We have a year's worth of scheduled webinars that are recorded that districts can watch or DTCs can watch at a time that works with their schedule. So we have continued those and we have updated those with information as it becomes pertinent. And again, our big communication push from the student assessment team will be next week as we engage in our required annual training. And so I wanted to take a moment and to see if there were any of the members of the family communications group, family and community engagement group, or any other student assessment team members, if there were any other things you wanted to offer, but then also open up for questions that people may have.
Do any of the members have a question for Ms. Horn? Okay, excellent report. Thank you very much. We hopefully everything is going to go smooth this spring, and we'll get some good data that we can use to impact student learning. Thank you. We'll move on to accountability. Ms. Rettinger.
Good morning, everyone. I just have a short presentation on ESSA accountability. Our advisory team met. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. So we met yesterday with our ESSA accountability advisory team and shared some, hold on just one second, I'm not getting, there we go, maybe. And shared information about, well, I'm jumping all over the place, the school report card, which was released for private review January 5th through the 12th. So yesterday afternoon that closed for districts to have a private review and go over their report card and see if they had any concerns, and they could report that back to the school performance unit. It will have public release on the 19th. Of course, we're communicating that the final, the official release is April 15th with all the data points added. So we also looked at communication. I know Rachel talked about with assessment, that's also one of our pushes is communication. We created a report card communication toolkit to give districts support on how do you communicate this information to families. Just real quickly, if I could pull this up. One of the areas that will be included with this communication is the impact of COVID on the modules that are reported in the report card. And so this is a good communication tool for schools to share with families on what is and isn't included in the report card. Let me back up here if I can. Maybe not. Okay, there we go. Some other items that are included in the communication toolkit for schools that may come up later, but we included a one-pager for districts. What is the school report card? Really just a quick snapshot of the indicators on the school report card. We also included letters that they can make their own and send out to parents. And our hope is they can actually just use front and back with the one-pager school report card, fact sheet, and the letter to parents, just to help them communicate that information. Also, we discussed the school rating system with the A to F rating system, the House Bill 1151 to pause school rating for the 2021 school year. And also looking at assessment and getting some feedback on their concerns and really what is the state of the state for teachers and testing? What were some of their concerns? Really, what are reasons that parents are giving for apprehension to test virtual students versus on-site students, and really what did the schools need from us as far as communication, and really pushing communication with families and encouraging them to build and deepen those relationships to build trust and to provide concrete procedural details to assure parents of safety during testing. So after we met with them to gather some feedback from our advisory team, and Denise, feel free to jump in at any time if you remember anything that I don't, but a couple of concerns that stood out to us. I'm sure we all know this, but just talking about teachers and testing, teachers are concerned that students will be labeled because of this assessment that's a concern of theirs, and looking at the difference in virtual students and on-site students. Parents are concerned, not wanting their students to come in and be exposed to any viruses or illnesses. Districts concern, really looking at the misinterpretation of data to really say one district's doing a good job with, say, virtual instruction and one district's doing a bad job. And something that came up that it made sense that there's a pandemic plan, and their fear is being judged on the pandemic plan. Another issue that most communicated was the social emotional well-being of teachers and how that's channeled through students, and how do they support their teachers without trying to control that. So just some good feedback and trying to provide them with communication to help push their information, their accountability information out to their families. So that's just my presentation in a nutshell. Do you guys have any questions?
Does anyone have any questions on accountability? Okay, you are doing an excellent job this morning. All right, Ms. Saraceni, we're going to move back to you now on educator equity and effectiveness.
Thank you. And I'm going to share my screen, and I just have 3 short slides for you this morning. And we're just kind of talking about what we're doing at this time with our career continuum. Currently, we have in master and lead professional. Master is those master teachers that are getting designated, and we currently have 378, and those lead teachers, we have 31 at this time. Our early career are our new first-time licensed that are our novice teachers, and we don't have many in the career professional, and that's because those that have started before now weren't on track. But as they renew their license, then this is going to give them that option to go back and choose career professional, so that we can really have those numbers, who are our early career, who is our career, and who has gotten a master's or lead professional designation. And we have different pathways to do that. There is the Leadership Academy. There is the HRS now teacher certification. There's NBCT. There's lots of pathways to get these designations. And of course, we have 9 overachievers that have both master and lead professional on their license. So we really like this because it really it's actually on your license. NBCT, National Board, is not on your license. And so this really gives it that extra elevating of our profession, and gives a true path for teachers to stay in the classroom but yet lead. And so I wanted to give you those updated numbers, because we are trying to do as much as we can to give teachers those pathways and those options. The other thing I wanted to bring your attention to is we have that alternate assessment plan. One of our big barriers is passing those praxis, and we have a lot of people out there that are teaching that have missed it by 1 or 2 points. And when we changed our rules to allow you to score within 2 SEM, standard error of measurement, this allowed you to show your proficiency through a performance assessment. And so currently, this is something that the university or college, the EPP, that educator prep program, goes in collaborates with the district and with the individual, and they have to apply for this, and all three have to be in unison on this because we want extra support for them. And I just wanted to kind of give you a synopsis of here. We have currently 26 that are in place. We have 3 in progress. We have 2 that are in traditional programs, 21 in our Apple program. In MATs across the state, we have 5 and 1 PPTL. And so we have them from Fayetteville to Blytheville to El Dorado to DeWitt. So we have them all over. So we're really excited that we now have an option for those teachers. Some people are just not good test takers. And so this gives that option of that performance assessment, what they can do in the classroom. And that's, we think this is really going to help keep those really good teachers in the classroom, or get them in the classroom and get them licensed. And this is a 3-year process. It's just kind of like the ALPs. They have to make yearly progress on that performance assessment. And there's different performance assessments out there. You can do it through a micro-credential, you can do it through a Praxis, and you can also do it through a Pearson test. So we're trying to get as many pathways for that as well, but yet have them high quality so that we know that we're supporting these teachers and they're showing proficiency in the content of which they're teaching. And the other thing was the licensure fee waivers that we waived from December to April. Currently, we have 111 fees waived, and 10 different institutions of higher ed, and also reciprocity. Also, we're getting more each day. These numbers have probably, since I sent these slides to Deb last week, we have more numbers because as the universities, they send in a bulk number at a time. They send anywhere from 30 to 100, whoever's graduating. So we're trying to get those processed so that we can get those licensed teachers into the classroom. So that's just kind of our updates and trying to eliminate those barriers to get teachers in the classroom. Any questions?
Does anyone have a question for Ms. Saraceni?
I have a clarification question. Thank you for going through this. Can you expand on that 10 institutes of higher ed and their reciprocity?
Yes, we have 10 universities of higher ed at this point have turned in to us and recommended for licensure, 106. You don't have as many graduating in December as you do May or August. And so those are just the ones who have sent in to us. We have about 21 universities and colleges across the state, but some may not have as a large number December grads as May. And so that's where those 10 higher ed of institutions come in. And then we have a few, because of COVID, just have not graduated until January. So we're still getting them in. So I'll update again. And then reciprocity are those coming in by reciprocity at this time from other states. They already have a license in another state, and they're coming in, and we waived those. What we waived was first time license. So that would be somebody coming in from another state, and then someone that has finished educator prep program. And then, of course, no deficiencies, that they would go straight to a standard license. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Ms. Saraceni, could you describe just a little bit more the alternate assessment plan, what that involves for the teachers?
Yes, the alternate assessment plan, these are individuals, candidates, maybe they could not pass that content praxis. They went ahead and have gone through a program, and they just could not, they may have gotten 1 point or away. And we have given them the option to have a alternate assessment. Now they still have to take the praxis, but the alternate is just kind of giving them, it's kind of merging with that praxis score. The alternate assessment is a performance-based assessment that takes about a year because they're having to show proficiency, that they are proficient in their content area. So it will be, because it's performance-based, it will be sometimes doing tasks, but it will also be sometimes where they have to video and then upload teaching, because if it's components at that point in their process, they have to upload a teach in that area. And it is scored, of course, through that vendor. And there's lots of different pathways, Praxis, Pearson, and some of our micro-credentials. And so they're scored. It's almost like a portfolio, but yet it's a performance, and it involves lots of tasks. It may be that they have to read an article, read a book, and then come back and write and maybe do a synopsis on it. And then if it's a certain teaching strategy, then they may have to teach that strategy, video themselves, and upload it. So it's a pretty intense process, this alternate assessment plan, but it really supports that teachers, and they have coaches along the way to help them through this process. And when someone's going through that alternate assessment plan, we are collaborating with our ed prep programs and the districts to provide extra support for these individuals, because we know that, your first year, when you first get into the classroom, it's hard enough, but we want to make sure that we are supporting you through this process. And does that answer your question enough, Ms. Newton?
Yes, that was excellent. That was what I was kind of wondering, was the time involved, if it was a one-time thing, or if it was, the process over a year would give you a good snapshot of the content knowledge of a teacher. So yes, I really like the idea, because like you said, there's so many that are good teachers, but they're not really good test takers. And so this will give that alternate pathway. So I'm really excited about that. Are there any other questions?
But you did
Ms.
say that the
Newton.
alternate assessment, they still have to take the praxis, correct?
Correct. And be within 2 SENs. And on our appendix in our licensure rules, it shows the what 2 SENs. 2 SENs may be 8 points for one exam, 10 points for another, but we also have it on our website. But if you would like to see it, please email me and I will send it to you. Okay?
Great, thank you.
One other question. How are teachers that maybe fall within that range, how would they find out about this program, that it's available?
This is district led, and if the district, they are very aware of it, and we continue to try to spread the word. And we also talk with our higher ed institutions and our other alternate prep programs. So this is something that we kind of can run a report on those who've scored kind of within those 2 SENs. And so we're really trying to reach out and really work with the districts and trying to really talk to them. But again, it's for districts that really believe in that individual that's been in their classroom and they want to keep them. And so, because we've got to remember, this is really a commitment for the district to provide extra support, and also for the ed prep program. And because we want this to be successful, we don't want that individual to not have success. You know, we're trying to eliminate as many barriers as we possibly can, but yet support them to become successful educators.
So if I'm understanding it right, it has to be through a partnership with the district and with whatever prep program that they were involved in.
Yes, because as you're doing a performance assessment, you know, you have to have that classroom in order to show you're proficient in that content.
Thank you. Any other questions? Ms. Kaufman?
Ms. Newton, before we move on to the next report, I'd like to come back and kind of put these advisory reports back in context. And so if you think about our approved ESSA plan, is our commitment or contract to the U.S. Department of Ed in return for federal funds. So in that application, they consider that our consolidated application. So in that, we've addressed how we will oversee Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and so on. But as a part of that plan, we have to outline how our commitment to ensuring rigorous academic standards, an aligned assessment system, and that's why Rachel and her team are always coming back and giving those assessment reports, equitable access to excellent educators. Ms. Saraceni is giving that update. Those things, along with the data, of course, that's coming out of our office with the help of Dr. Arola, then the support that we're providing to those schools that are in need of additional or comprehensive support, and then the reporting. So the report card, the ESSA School Index, the accountability at a glance, all of that is part of that comprehensive approved ESSA plan. And so I just wanted to take a moment and kind of put it all back together, because sometimes we talk about all the parts and we need to put it all back together because it all has to work together. And so that's what makes each person's report so powerful in the big picture of meeting our, what we've committed to, meeting our commitment.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the advisory reports? Okay. We're going to move on now to the graduation report. Dr. Arola and Ms. Rettinger.
I'll share my screen. Okay. So for the state graduation rate this year, these numbers will be on the school report card that's published on the 19th, and it will also be a part of our accountability for next year. So looking at the rates for four-year cohort in 2020 was 88.8%, and five-year cohort was 89%. And there is a slight increase in the four-year cohort graduation rate and a slight decrease in the five-year. So pretty basic. Do you guys have any questions about the graduation rate?
Before we go to questions, let me just explain with the five-year rate, comparing 2019 five-year to 2020 five-year can be a little bit confusing and misleading. The way that the five-year works is you're really comparing diagonal. So if I look at the 2017 four-year, those are the same kids, for the most part, 99% of them are the same kids that are in the 2018 five-year. So what we're looking to see is an improvement from the 2017 four-year to the 2018 five-year. And so if you'll use that diagonal, you'll see that every year we've seen an increase, but we've actually had a pretty good increase from 87.6 to 89. That's that same group of kids, that same cohort that was impacted in 2019 by not letting any kids fall through the cracks in terms of, we had a business rule that we implemented in 2019 where we said if a student's drop code says they are transferring to another school in Arkansas, and they never show up in another school in Arkansas, we're not going to automatically remove them. We're going to ask the district to tell us why they're not somewhere else. So they stayed in that district's cohort if they never truly transferred. So I just wanted to clarify that. Sorry.
Very helpful, Dr. Rowland, but that way we can see, you know, make sure that we're comparing the right thing there. And it's impressive to see that we're consistently making improvement from the 4-year to the 5-year each time a cohort goes through. So that's encouraging. Does anyone have questions for Dr. Rowland or Ms. Rettinger?
This
Okay.
is Melissa McKinnis, and I have a question. There
Okay.
was an article that I had read within the last week that some states had higher graduation rates because some of their standards for graduation had to be relaxed because of COVID. Does any of that apply to our Arkansas students, or were the graduation standards the same as they have been?
The graduation were the same. Go ahead, Denise.
No, you were spot on. The graduation standards are the same. The only thing that may have played an impact is that districts were told that if a student was on target in a course by the end of the 3rd quarter, then they really couldn't lose ground in the 4th quarter. So that would be the only thing, but the graduation standards in terms of credits and everything else were the same. And really in reviewing the data, there didn't seem to be, there just didn't seem to be anything that stood out as, oh, wow, I wonder if this is because of COVID. A lot of what we saw in the way of corrections, in the way of students who were not graduated, were very similar to prior years. And I did look at the rate of change, the average change, because our TAC actually asked that same question and asked us to go back, and we went back and looked at the difference between 2017, and particularly at the school level, to see if there were any like crazy anomalous school changes. And we looked at 2017-18 changes, and we looked at the 2019-20. The reason I didn't use the 2019 is because we implemented that business rule and it dropped everybody's rates that year. But what we found was that the differences from one year to the next between 2017 and 18 looked very similar to the differences between 2019 and 2020 across the distribution of high schools. And that if there were any extreme increases or any extreme decreases, for the most part, those were easily explained by either reconfigurations of students that would change enrollment significantly enough that your denominator would change pretty significantly, or they were really tiny schools that had a really small cohort to begin with. So one student would make a 20% increase, you know, in the school rate. So everything was really pretty similar to what we've seen in prior years. I say with confidence.
All right. Anyone else have a question? Okay, Ms. Coffin.
If you notice on the bottom of this slide is a URL to the federal guidance regarding graduation rate cohort. The reason we've attached that, we try to attach that every time we talk about graduation rate, is because graduation rate is not determined by Arkansas business rules. So when Dr. Rowland is saying, you know, there was a change in business rules, that's because there was a change in the federal guidance. And therefore, we've been very diligent in making sure that we're following this guidance. A couple of things to note about the guidance. This is one of the things that is consistent about all accountability systems across the nation. The one thing that is consistent is graduation rate. Every state has to follow this guidance. So therefore, the U.S. Department of Ed monitors it very closely. In addition, legislative audit also monitors this very closely because it is on the federal monitoring list. So we get requests all the time to open something back up or send somebody a copy of what they've submitted because they are responsible for archiving information regarding graduation rate. That's one of the things that I think as we look over time, even though the guidance changed here and caused graduation rate to be lowered because of the records that need to be retained, you have to really keep up with a kid from the minute they enroll as a ninth grader. You've got to have the appropriate documentation, and this guidance tells what is appropriate documentation. So it's easy to say, oh, school district fix this, but it takes 4 years sometimes to fix those problems. So what I'm excited this year in going through graduation rate corrections, we saw that school districts are getting much better at having and retaining their documents and being ready for graduation rate corrections. So it comes about every year at the same time. We do that in November. Corrections opens up, but it's only through the approved documentation that we can make any adjustment in that cohort. So just real hats off to the school counselors and data stewards that are keeping up with that information and having it ready. And they have to do a lot of screenshotting and have official documents as it outlines in here. So to see that kind of continued improvement is really a testament to not only keeping kids on track to graduate, but also keeping all of the records in place to submit along with that for this report. And as Tammy said, the data that you're seeing, this is the one piece of data that goes into our ESSA school index next year that you get to see early. So schools can already see that and be planning for how that will fit into their calculation of their index.
Any other comments or questions?
Since this is a consistent rate measured with all states, how does Arkansas fare with other states?
Well, right offhand, I don't know where our ranking is on that, but that's something that we can look back and get back to you.
Yeah, the national average is in the lower 80s. I want to say it's somewhere around 83%, and we do fare better. I think the only way that states might differ is in how they handle significantly cognitively disabled students within their systems, and Arkansas is on a path to have that roll out in the next, I think, trying to think of what year those kids started in the 1920, the ninth graders of 1920. So 2023. But that's, we're above average. And I would guesstimate we're probably in the top 30% of states with our graduation rate.
Okay, thank you.
I would add to that also that as a part of our accountability, we're required to identify any school that has a graduation rate below 66.667%. And currently, our schools that do have a graduation rate below that mark are schools that provide an alternative approach to education. And or a couple of high schools that are totally being redesigned moving forward in the future. So we're looking to see, but most of our schools that, or the other schools that were identified have corrected their problems. A couple of them had documentation problems. And that's what's so exciting about our Kansans is our educators have really gotten in there and studied our business rules. They know it. They help us find errors. They're just so well versed in it that we're cleaning up all of those things from the past.
That goes back to what you were talking about a while ago, the levels of support that we're able to give as a department to different districts, you know, in areas that they're having problems with. Instead of identifying somebody, we're supporting. And I think that's one of the greatest things that's come out of our ESSA plan is that we have our eyes on support. How can we help you? And I think we're seeing results from that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Coughlin, I think the next two items are yours.
All right. Last time we met, we talked about an addendum to the approved Arkansas ESSA plan. The addendum is a one-time, one-year addendum, and we've put that out for public comment. We received one public comment, and it was just a bigger, broader, general comment that we will respond to that individual. But overall, there's not any comments that we've received that would go against submitting our addendum. We did take it to our TAC and talk through it with them. We don't know what the future holds. So not only are we still in a pandemic, but we're changing administration at the U.S. Department of Ed. So we will just stay tuned. Right now, we believe that it is in the best interest of Arkansas for us to submit the addendum as we have posted.
Will that be submitted, you think? When?
So I'd like to get a vote from this committee to go ahead and submit that addendum, and then I'd like to take it to the state board at the end of this week, get their blessing, and then submit it to the U.S. Department of Ed.
All right, so it sounds like we need a motion for Ms. Coughlin to start the process of submitting this to the Department of Ed.
I make a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Ms. Edom and was the motion, and I think I heard Dr. Jeffcoat. It's hard to hear on the screen,
Yes.
but all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Ms. Coughlin, you have your send off.
Thank you very much. And I will keep you informed as to when that addendum is approved or if we get feedback, and then if any additional opportunities come from the U.S. Department of Ed. Our next item is a waiver of Title IV. As you recall, we had an opportunity to submit for a waiver of Title IV last school year, and we did receive that. That was an expedited waiver process from the U.S. Department of Ed that basically gives school districts the ability to use their Title IV funds for the needs within those allowances. But currently, as Title IV is written now, you have to spend your money in buckets, 20%, 20%, 40%. And so this waiver request would allow, in many instances, to have more money to go toward technology. It just gives a little more freedom in the decision-making. So as you know, we were offered this opportunity in late November, December, I don't know, I've lost track of time. We did have to put out for public comment. We have done that. There were no public comments. And so therefore I submitted this waiver request on January the 5th. Our understanding is that we would hear back from the U.S. Department of Ed within approximately 3 days. I heard back instantly that they had received it, but we checked again yesterday to see what the status was, and they commented back to us that things are a little behind. There have been resignations and things going on. So we totally understand, but we do know it has been received. We do know it's in queue to be reviewed. And as soon as we hear something from them, if it's approved, we'll post that all out. We keep everything updated on our ESSA webpage. That's linked right there on our front of the homepage of the DESE website, but we'll also put it out by commissioner memo as soon as we hear back regarding that waiver request.
It's funds for that, this year funds or next year funds?
This is the 2021, the monies that were received in this pot
Okay.
for Title IV. So, you know, with federal funds, you have approximately a 2-year window. So it's attached to that federal year
Okay.
of funds. So it also gives some relaxation to the needs assessment. So if you wanted to adjust how you're spending those funds, you wouldn't have to go back in and redo your needs assessment. And I think that's the biggest gist of it.
Any questions or comments about the waiver? Okay. All right, our next item is to discuss our next meeting. You have suggestions, Ms. Kaufman?
So if we hear anything from the U.S. Department of Ed about any changes to ESSA plans, I would certainly want to contact you and say, we need to meet and talk about whatever. Right now, I'll expect to hear back on the waiver. I'll expect to hear back on the addendum. We don't foresee any other big changes until the U.S. Department of Ed has transitioned into the new administration, and then we'll kind of play it from there. The next thing will be assessment during assessment window, and I don't know if Rachel's still on. Rachel, do you think probably, is there a good time in April where we may want to come back and just kind of talk about with the steering committee how assessment is going during that window?
I think that would be good. And that would also give us an opportunity to talk about the flexibilities that were provided for districts in order to meet the needs of their local communities in mitigating the impact of COVID and still assessing on site.
So are you thinking middle to end of April?
I think that would be fine. That would give us time to see how the testing windows are going. Well, the window specifically for ACT Aspire is going, and we could provide some feedback at that time.
We expect that by then we would have a good idea of the direction that the Biden administration will go with education, we're hoping. So they have identified a secretary for education, and there's someone standing in acting as secretary presently. So we hope that we'll know more by then.
Set a date today or leave it open? How do you want to do that?
With the legislative session, we might need to leave it open until I can find a date and check everybody to make sure it's going to be a good day.
Okay. All right. So we'll tentatively plan for April, and Ms. Kaufman will send out a date when we kind of start getting some feedback on when would it be a good time.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. Are there any other items that anyone would like to discuss or before we leave today? Okay, hearing none. I want to thank you all for joining us today and taking time out of your busy day. I know it is sometimes inconvenient, but your input is valuable and we appreciate each and every one of you. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Dr. Jeffcoat, second by Ms. Sanders. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We'll talk to you again in April, and hopefully one of these days we'll be back face to face. All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
you.